You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on the irlonestar.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here today with our special guest, Shiva Gill. Shiva is an immigration attorney in Houston. She's over right off Shepherd, guys, if you're interested in talking to her. But she is our special guest today, and she was here last week. This week, we're doing Immigration Part 2. And Shiva, welcome to the show. We're so grateful that you came. We're so grateful that you came. And I know that last week y'all talked about what happens when someone crosses the border. Basically, what did you talk about last week, Tony?
Well, we talked about if you are picked up by ICE through whatever mechanism, if somebody came to your house and they were searching you out, or you were arrested and the sheriff picked you up to the jail, or you were stopped on the street because you didn't have your license, whatever means it was that you ended up in an ICE detention facility and you needed to get out. What we discussed were the burden that you had to get out and the process, what you're looking at, what your family's looking at in order to be released on bond. And we were going to finish up that segment and finding out once the bond is set after the hearing. And the hearing, where's the hearing held?
The Drive location,
Okay, there's still some there,
but the bulk of them are being held in the Montgomery Processing Center,
which is brand
in
new.
Conroe.
Which
Well, I have a friend that I told you about, Tony, that I spent this weekend with, and she does immigration law, and she works for Catholic Charities. And she was telling me that it was all moved to Montgomery County because Montgomery County won some sort of bid for the detention center. What happened with that, Shiva?
So, the immigration jails are not owned by the federal government. So they have private contractors that that bid on them. And so they'll say, well, we need 200, bed spaces, or we need 300 bed spaces. And then they just go ahead and bid on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it has not all been moved because there are still some judges sitting at Export Plaza. But the difference is that for filings and motions and docketing, it's Conroe that's handling it.
Wow.
But it's likely that the actual bond hearing might be held at Export Plaza. So they
Okay.
still have 3 judges.
Is Expert Plaza going to stay open?
So once the contract ends, we don't know what's going to happen
Okay.
to them, but we won't
Right.
have immigration detainees.
But we've got them in Conroe now, which of course we love because we're right here in Montgomery County, and it's right down by the county jail down
7
down
minutes from here.
Hillbig.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, right.
Great, beautiful facility
Yeah.
too. But anyway, that's all being
It is.
said.
Right. So that's where they're holding the bond hearings these
Okay.
days for the most part.
Okay.
And your friend, what is your friend's name that works at Catholic
Her name
Charities?
is Maria Molina, and I'm glad that we're talking about this because, temporary protected status in DACA. We're going to talk about that today.
Yes,
too,
uh-huh.
but that's just some interesting situations there.
So to finish, so I want to get right to that because I know that our listeners are really interested in all those the means that you can stay here. But so you have the hearing, and your client's usually brought from custody, and they can testify to the judge. And I guess there's a little courthouse or a courtroom over there in that facility. Once does the judge make a decision right there, or do they take it on advisement?
No, they make the decision right there. So,
Okay.
of course, we argue why the person should be given a bond.
Mhm.
Of course, the immigration prosecutor. the
Is it
par-
typical that they get it once? Do you know going in whether or not they're going to get it? Just as is
No, we have no idea.
is it like 50-50 or what is the percentage of the time you'll get the bond?
So if it's like a shoplifting, I'm almost certain I'm going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a blood alcohol level of 0.15 or higher, I'm almost
Even on a first
certain
conviction?
I won't,
Really, even on a first
Yeah.
conviction?
because that's a very high level of blood
Even with the
alcohol.
circumstances supporting that they may have children and they're the breadwinner, that doesn't matter.
So, those are all. So, again, you see, bonds is a fact specific thing
Mhm.
where also the personality of the judge comes in.
Ah, okay, that's
so,
true.
there are certain judges that will not. I mean, we know the outcome even before we go there. And I warn
Okay.
the.
And you
have-
can't change to a different judge?
No, you can't. form
Not just
a
like
child.
in real life. Okay, got
So
it.
if it's Judge XYZ, I always say to them, your chances of getting a bond.
And
are
when do you know it's going to be the
79.
judge when they set the hearing?
When
when do you know the
we
judge?
know
Okay.
ahead of time that when they set the hearing,
Okay.
we know which judge we're going to.
So let's say that you have well, whichever way it goes, when you get there and you get the ruling, that say they set the bond for typically, let's say you get lucky on a DWI, one of the lenient judges, which may happen 5% of the time. What would the bond be set for something like that? typically.
So I've seldom seen lower than a $5,000 bond.
Uh-huh.
Really?
And, yeah,
That high?
and it's tragic because in criminal court they have a $500 bond.
And sometimes a
Right.
personal bond, just let them go.
And,
I mean, I was thinking 2,000
right.
maybe.
And
I've-
again, if you can get around that ICE hold, if you get arrested, then get out of there before you get the ICE hold, then and you have a personal recognizance bond, you're not going to ICE. If you stay in jail because your family's not helping you because they're mad or whatever, the likelihood of you getting picked up by ICE just gets higher and higher. So
Yeah. So, the main thing that one of the things that people do to get out of jail, criminal custody, is that when they're asked, are you a U.S. citizen? Some of them will say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Fatal.
Yeah.
That's
really,
a false claim to U.S. citizenship is the kiss of death.
really,
Wow.
Very fatal.
what do they
So-
say then?
So listeners
here
never
on visa.
claim to have a U.S. citizenship when you do not
That is
have
right.
it.
Even saying it is going to
Yes,
kill it.
because the statute states that if you claim falsely claim to be a U.S. citizen for any immigration benefit,
Mhm.
Oh,
and that has been very widely.
Yes, but if they
construed.
say they're a
Right.
citizen for the purpose of not quickly being identified by ICE,
that's an
well, that's a
immigration
benefit.
oh, it is. Yeah, but if
Yeah.
you don't get caught, then you just got lucky, basically. But
Yeah,
if
I
you get caught,
guess.
you have the death
So
nail.
if they ask
It's
you,
not
are
worth
you a
it.
U.S. citizen? Just say no, I'm not. I don't have
Right.
Papers.
Which actually, most of my clients actually are honest about it because it's better to be honest in the eyes
But
of God
I've
and the
seen,
law.
Like sometimes from Harris County, somebody gets released, and I go, "How did you swing that?" And then when I go to the district clerk's website, it'll say U.S. citizen, yes.
Oh, but they got released,
lied.
so they
They
got by with
lied.
it. But
Well,
if they
so
don't
what
get by with it,
happens? What happens? So if they get by with it, it's just over, or do they come back later and say, "You
I
lied about
mean,
this"?
At some point, because these days you cannot renew a driver's license if you cannot prove legal status. So each time you get picked up for failure to ID, no driver license,
Mhm.
at some point the dots will get connected. Then you can have 13 U.S. citizen children, 5 of them have 6 kinds of cancer.
yeah.
It's
If
not
you get
gonna help
arrested,
you.
those fingerprints are going to get you eventually.
Right.
And I will say this, and this is really bad, but I have a couple of clients that have been deported several times, and they came back, and
Changed
because
their
it was that
name.
bad, they got false Social Security code, they got false IDs, and they are working happy as a clam. And I have no idea where because I'm just aware of it,
Right.
like in North Carolina and Kentucky or whatever
Mm.
far away. But they came back, but what a risk! The instant they get picked up for anything, just stopped and picked up, and they're identified. That's not just federal. I mean, that's federal prison time. It's not just a deportation. You are going to prison because you have committed so many federal crimes. But that being the case, so somebody gets the to go back to the bond amount. If somebody gets the $5,000 bond, but it could go as high as what is the highest you've seen?
50, the normal range, I've seen higher than
Okay.
15,000. I have seen $1,500 bonds.
Uh-huh.
But the normal wiggle room is between 5 and 15.
You can't offer them like 50,000 if the DWI because you're a no bond. Like I know that in Montgomery County sometimes you can get a plea on a DWI, and this doesn't have any of the information, but money talks. You can get a better deal if you pay a lot of money in a fine.
Yeah.
Does it work that way with immigration? Can
No,
you-
unfortunately, again, the judge uses the criteria of are you a danger to the community?
Okay,
And
got it.
do you have relief that is not speculative?
Okay, let's say they get a $15,000 bond, then that's quite a bit. Can they get? Will the federal government accept a bond from a bonding company, or do they have to pay a cash bond, or how does that work?
So I always recommend a cash bond
Uh-huh.
because when your
You
case
get it
is
right
over,
back,
win,
uh-huh.
lose, or draw, you're going to get it back with interest.
Mhm.
Now,
Unless you skip town, and you'll never get
I
it.
mean,
back.
obviously,
Well, yeah.
but if, and again, even believe it or not, when they skip town, the bond gets forfeited. But
Mhm.
at some point, the
Oh.
obligor, if he gets a bounty hunter or finds this person, turns them in
Mhm.
because the obligor promises to deliver the alien.
Oh,
So at some point, if
because
they-
they've duped some
That is
family
the
member
bonding
into
company
signing
for our
off.
listeners.
Right. But the
Okay.
the bonding
They do.
company, because of the fact that we're so close to the border and all
Yeah.
somebody has to do. So there is no 10% rule in immigration bonds.
Uh-huh.
There are only 2 or 3 bondsmen in the whole city of
Really?
Houston that do.
Really?
You can't just go
Oh,
to Joe Bondsman.
That's why all of them
Right.
have
I
to come
did
up with
not
so
know
much
that.
money so
and
quickly.
it's a 40% down payment.
Oh,
Cash.
okay.
It's the same with state bonds on that, though, not
And
just
they
federal.
have to secure the balance with their vehicle or firstborn child or
Some
whatever.
collateral.
Yeah, and then that's when
Right.
they always call me
And
and
the
ask for my own
interest
collateral.
rates are astronomical.
Okay.
Huge.
So not being a citizen
What are
and
the
being picked
interest
up.
rates? 25%?
Yeah, I actually ended up suing a bondsman because the
Usury.
the personal injury lawyer. This guy had sliced off three of his fingers in an industrial accident.
Mhm.
So they hired me to get him a bond, and he didn't have money. He was Honduran or
Mhm.
Central American. But in all this, so they had a very large settlement from the
Personal
company,
injury. Mhm.
personal injury. So they wanted him out, and this guy was willing to take his money and whatever he got and go back and have a very nice life in his home country.
Okay.
But this bondsman, he said, "Okay, you're a lawyer. Okay, I'll give you a good deal." And but when I went to pay, he changed the rules,
Mm.
Oh.
and so I sued him.
Was it in writing, the deal?
You come out
Yeah.
of court and you say, but the point is that so
Record,
and
record.
because immigration cases last for so long
Mhm.
that
How long do they typically last?
well, I've got cases from 2011 still
Oh,
pending.
my
Wow.
goodness.
Why?
So they
Well,
ch-
we're going to get into that, but in the old one, it's because the government
because
is.
we don't have enough judges. We have the
Right.
largest backlog in the
system,
country. We have
mhm.
50,000 cases, I think, in Houston alone.
Wow.
And so
okay.
the cases for judges
With
quit,
3 judges or whatever.
But what's prolonging it?
We
Why,
have
why is
many-
it? Why is it taking so
we have
long?
many. So once they bond out, they get on the non-detained docket, and we have more judges there
Okay.
downtown. We do,
Okay.
but there are many reasons why they have.
Now, the non-detention docket, is that in the federal courthouse downtown?
No,
Oh.
it's in they have space in the Mickey Leland building,
Okay. Okay.
and then across the street they have space in the Continental Center.
Okay. So it's kind of
Yeah.
all over the world.
So
That's
they
new to
have,
me. I've
I
never
think
been to that.
about 10, 11 courts downtown.
Okay. Now, we are going to get into the juicy part now, the stuff that people really want to know, the
But
reasons.
before
Okay.
they charge an annual service fee, which is something like $1,500 to keep the bond alive. So you're paying,
Every year?
20%
Oh my
interest,
gosh.
Plus
you've
this
got-
fee.
and plus this, and so. I
Oh,
have
or
to
they'll
say,
yank the
"Shiva, I can't
bond."
afford to pay the fee every year, and they'll sometimes just. Leave.
But that's not, but if you have a cash bond, you don't pay that fee, right? It just rides.
I highly
That's
recommend a
why
cash
you
bond.
recommend a cash
Okay, because you're
bond.
not,
Deal. Yeah.
you're not having to deal with another, you're dealing directly with just that bond sitting in the court registry.
Wow, that's
Okay.
very different.
That's
then.
why I knew it was only cash bond, but that's
So
what
by
you
the
had
time
suggested.
your case is done, if you have a $15,000 bond, you'll end up having to pay $30,000 to a bondsman.
Just the
Right.
bond.
Well, that's the same way right now with all my
as
clients
opposed
with
to getting
criminal.
it back with interest.
I always say pay the cash bond if
Yeah.
you can,
Yeah,
because you'll get all the money back after the case is over, win, lose, or draw.
right.
And you're free to travel too. If you don't have the restrictions of a bonding, I don't know how it is in immigration.
No, in immigration, you're not free to travel because, then you can be deemed a fugitive.
No.
You're doing a runner.
But you can't even ask if you want to go back and visit your.
You can go and get permit. Go where? No, you can go back to Mexico because when
Oh,
you
that's what they
or
wanna
your
do.
country, if you're facing deportation
Uh-huh.
and you leave while the proceedings are pending, you have self-deported.
Oh, I didn't
Oh.
know
They've done
that.
the government's job for you.
Okay.
Oh.
Good to know. Good to know. Because I have so many clients. Say clients. I have a lot of people I'm familiar with that are like, I'm just going to pop back into Mexico real quick, and I didn't know they couldn't do that. They're doing it. They're not getting caught.
Yeah, if
Somehow.
they get caught, that they'll say, "Well, you deported yourself. But good luck next time. Goodbye."
Okay, now finally tell us that the magic list. I know it's just not one way to stay here. What are the legal means that I want to say grocery list, punch list of the different options you have to be here legally?
Okay, so there are three ways that you can gain status. So, of course, one is family basis.
Mm-hmm.
I have, citizen wife, I have a child over 21, whatever. The other is employment, which doesn't,
This is DACA or otherwise, right?
it's, I'm a rocket scientist, I'm a famous movie star, I'm a famous athlete, I'm a surgeon.
This
you
is
ladies-
before you've come across the border, though. This is you just want to be a citizen, or
Right. So,
Okay.
so that's one way. Like people come on a work visa,
Mhm.
and then the employer says, "Gee, I really like you. I want you to do research at my hospital, MD Anderson or whatever."
Mhm.
So that's employment related. But if you're already here illegally, that doesn't apply to you.
Now, if somebody just comes over here on vacation, though, you don't need a visa for that. You're just coming over, right?
Well, you need a visa to come as a visitor.
I said I
It's
didn't know
a vi-
that.
Yeah. it's
I
a-
know in Brazil you need it. I just know nothing about the United States part of it.
In
Okay.
the U.S., you need a visitor visa, which certain countries are exempt from it, like Britain and France. And
Mhm.
What
Switzerland.
about Cuba? Is Cuba exempt from it?
Oh, no.
Okay.
So Cuba had a different program called the
know.
Cuban Adjustment Act,
Mm-hmm.
which was the wet foot, dry foot policy. I'd have to explain all that to you,
Right.
but President Obama nixed that. So
Oh,
we
okay.
no longer have that.
Okay.
But, and the third way is basically public policy, which, because it's public policy, changes with the mood of the administration.
Right.
Mhm.
So, coming as a refugee or seeking asylum, which is a big problem right now, is that, public policy says if you fear persecution in your home country, you can ask for protection from the U.S. Doesn't mean you'll get it, but you can ask.
But all this is occurring before you're here, right?
No, that's what's happening at the border. is
Right.
People are coming and saying, I want asylum.
Uh-huh.
And they have to be
Okay.
allowed in or whatever. So there's refugee, asylee. Then you have, if you are a spouse of a U.S. citizen and you are subjected to battery and extreme cruelty, then you can apply for benefits under the Violence Against Women Act.
Okay.
But you do have to prove good faith marriage to a U.S. citizen or a legal permanent resident.
Okay. Go back. Say that one again.
So good faith marriage.
Uh-huh.
And good faith marriage is, of course, you have to prove that I entered into this relationship
Mhm.
in good faith.
It's
Right.
not a sham.
And
Not
it
a
was
sham marriage.
So,
Mhm.
number two is he's a resident or a citizen. So if he happens to be illegal, you're out of luck.
The person you're marrying.
So
Mhm.
married,
All right. Okay.
citizen, or
citizen.
resident.
Uh-huh.
Good faith marriage,
Uh-huh.
citizen or resident.
Uh-huh.
Number three is good moral character.
Okay.
So I'm not a bad
So
person.
nothing else is going on. They came over here illegally, but they've hooked up with somebody who's
They've entered into a marriage with
Okay.
somebody who has legal status.
okay.
Right.
And just to sidetrack on that just for a moment, because we've had a lot of clients like this.
Mhm.
When somebody is when the illegal person is marrying this citizen they've fallen in love with, but they really weren't falling in love with them. They really just falling in love with being a citizen. And then that new spouse, the marriage goes south. What happens to the illegal person that's now gone through the process to become a citizen and, had the interview? Like we've all seen that movie with Sandra Bullock where, she goes and she gets married and then they go have the interview to make sure it's legit, which I know that really happens.
Or
And-
green card.
Yeah, get the green
Yeah.
card.
Gerard
So
Depardieu.
what happens though when with the character that was played not by Sandra Bullock, who was the Canadian, but the other guy, when he finds out that it was just a sham, Sandra just wanted to be, a citizen, and she used him. Is there any repercussion for the now
The American citizen.
the American
person?
citizen that got kind of used,
Um,
or the person got away with it now, or they're a citizen because they?
yeah, so it depends it depends on at what point you are caught,
Uh-huh.
okay, or you realize.
Right.
So if the marriage is less than 2 years old,
Mm-hmm.
you get a 2-year green card.
Right. Okay.
It's called a conditional residence card.
Okay.
Then at the end of those 2 years, you have to go back and remove the conditions to get your 10-year green card.
So you're meeting. That's when you meet with immigration.
By
That,
3 ways.
Mhm.
One is it's a good faith marriage and we're still together.
right.
It's
Mhm.
called a joint petition.
Mhm.
The other is it's a good faith marriage, but it ended in divorce or annulment.
Uh huh.
And the third way is it was a good faith marriage, but I was subjected to battery and extreme cruelty.
Uh huh.
Now, so the repercussions, so at the end of 2 years,
Uh huh.
if the marriage has ended before the 2 years is over,
Uh huh.
it's a significant challenge for that alien to show that they entered into a marriage in good faith.
Right, because they have to do that interview, and there's no way they're going to get their tenure.
And the case
Mhm.
that you and I did together,
Mhm.
where he boogied after a month, remember
Uh-huh.
that?
Right, right. Oh, that was terrible. All
Right.
those marriages.
So she basically wrote an affidavit to the service saying he used me to get his green card, and once he came here, he did a runner.
Mhm.
So I believe that he married me for immigration benefits.
Hmm.
So they pull everything then, right?
Comes down like a house of cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the problem actually also occurs in the reverse,
Hmm.
where they offer money to the citizen. If you
Mhm.
marry me, I'll give you $10,000.
Oh, yeah.
Uh huh.
And of course,
See,
the
oh,
guy
quite a bit,
thinks,
uh-huh.
right. Now the immigration officers can smell a fake marriage a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so what they do is they separate them. They
Uh-huh.
take the citizen into a separate
I've had
room.
people tell me about it, and they
and
ask them
say-
all kind of questions,
but
detailed about sex and everything else.
and they'll say, if you are lying that this is you're going to prison for
interrogating
5
them.
years.
To
You are
the
going.
American citizen?
Both of them. Both. Mhm.
Well, unless you tell us the truth, and the U.S. citizen will say, why should I go to jail for her?
Yeah.
But if you tell us the truth, nothing will happen to you, and he'll say, yeah, she paid me 10,000,
Which is not true because.
and then make him sign a statement.
Oh, so if the U.S. citizen tells the truth, no problem.
I mean, if he wants to avoid going to jail, he sings.
Okay.
Can they really throw him in jail for 5 years?
Well, entering
can't
into a
prove it.
marriage fraud to defraud the federal government
Oh,
is
no,
a very serious
I know.
crime.
But do they do it?
But can
I
you
mean,
really
they-
prove the
they-
citizen?
It's not, would they do it? They could.
hard to
if-
prove.
So they actually have sent people to prison under very, I'll
Extreme.
show where
Mhm.
the guy married 5 women at the same time.
Yeah.
Right, right. And that's the one that we were on, at least
Okay.
one of the ones that we work
Right.
with, where we learned that there was like every year a different alien that was marrying this guy who, a lot of them, I think, actually liked the women that were aliens or
So
liked
the women
them.
were aliens and the guy was the U.S. citizen and he was just kind of creating a
He was-
harem.
it
Oh
was
my
a-
God.
it was a
he was
profit
making
center.
money.
He was making a lot of money as he was marrying one after the other,
Oh, okay.
and they didn't know about each other.
Oh.
They actually thought there was some love involved there.
I even know a guy who married several of them at the same time. He had third, fourth,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 wives at the same time. And we had to run around one of the poor women. She was charged with you didn't enter into a good faith marriage, but she was stupid girl. She went and got a divorce from him, which legitimized the marriage.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
so then
yes,
we
yes,
had to
yes.
go back and get
Uh-huh.
someone to do a
Yeah, it's a mess.
non-pro-tunk and
Yeah,
annulment.
and I hate taking those cases because you've got to follow through and see which marriages were real because the next one comes if the other person
Yeah.
died. It's a mess, but you can
But
eventually
it
get it
doesn't
done.
prevent my client from picking up entering into a sham marriage charge.
Right.
So
Now, but what happens when it goes over that 2-year mark? What's the next step?
so if you can get your 10-year green card,
So they go in,
and-
they do the interview, and the other person, the fraudulent person that wants to, I'm going to use a guy as an example, wants to be, unlike Sandra Bullock, wants to be a citizen. So they schmooze and they wine and dine.
hang in
this-
there for 2
This
years.
poor girl. Then right on the 2-year mark, when they become get their 10-year visa, what does the poor girl that now learns that she was
Youth.
never his one and only do? Nothing.
It's once they get their 10-year card, it's the ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty hard.
Okay. Well, that's just really sad because they were duped and they thought it was love, and it's easy to keep up the front for 2 years, and then them take off and be like, see ya, and then all the real surf. Okay, so now you know about that. All right. So that being said, let's go back to the. We're gonna after our break, we're gonna go back
Okay,
to.
we have about 1 more minute.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have the list before we get into the details of all of them. List just if I have somebody that's not a citizen, the laundry list. She said there's 3. There's only 3 ways if someone's not a citizen to get a visa. I know there's a work visa. I know there's a U visa. I know there's a.
No, so that's public policy. So the trafficking visas,
Mhm.
being a victim of a serious crime, being a battered spouse,
Mm-hmm.
being a refugee, being an asylum seeker,
Mhm.
they fall under public policy.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
So when someone comes to me and says, I don't have a husband, I have no family here with status, I don't have kids born here, but I was raped
Mhm.
and I cooperated with the police to lock up the bad guy.
So that's called the U visa for some reason.
Yeah,
What does
it's
the U
called-
visa stand for?
Every alphabet has been taken.
Yeah. So now we're
Okay.
at the bottom.
Yeah, A visas, the diplomatic
Okay, I
visas.
didn't know what that
yeah.
stood
Usually
for.
Right.
for violence.
That is
Yeah.
so interesting. But that's under
Yeah.
public policy.
But
those
I've
are-
heard that Trump put he made a determination that domestic violence is a personal issue, and we're not going to honor those so much.
No, you're talking about the people who come from other countries. If you were a battered spouse in your country,
Okay.
and you could show your country was not protecting you because then you could ask for asylum as a victim of domestic violence.
Okay.
And so, it was Attorney General Sessions who said that
Yes.
if the harm you've suffered is by a private actor, cartels, gangs, abusive husbands,
Mm-hmm.
that is not grounds for asylum. It's being
Here.
litigated. Yeah. So,
But
All
the
right, so it'd
U
have to be the
visa
country.
is for here for domestic violence that's occurred
if
here,
you marry a U.S. citizen or a resident.
and it's still active and strong, so people can still get it. Okay,
So
great.
if somebody who's illegal who has married a citizen or a resident and he's beating her up, we can do something.
We can do something.
Right.
Great. Okay, well, we are going to take a quick break. We are here with Shiva Gill, an immigration attorney. This is the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl, and today we're talking about immigration law. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back.
Hey guys, this is Connor,
This is Dick.
This is Chris.
and we're with the Ticket Stub Podcast every Thursday live at noon on 104.5 and 106.1 FM in the Conroe area. Also, anytime at irlonestar.com. You go to irlonestar.com/TTS. You can find all of our social media.
And don't forget, we give away 2 tickets to the Grand Theater on every show.
If you like movies and you like complaining or celebrating anything that has to do with the silver screen, check out the Ticket Stub Podcast and join us every Thursday at noon o'clock on Lone Star Community Radio.
Hey, Montgomery County, it's me, C.C. Holmes. And I would personally like to take this time to invite you, that's right, you, to join me every Saturday and Sunday from 3 until 7 p.m., where I will bring you the very best of smooth jazz, classic jazz, and indeed, yes, the soulful sounds of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So come along and get jazzy with me. That's right, jazzy. Right here, of course, on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 FM, or worldwide at irlongstar.com.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Today we're talking about immigration law with our special guest, Shiva Gill. Shiva is an attorney here in Houston. Shiva, where is your office located? Is it on Shepherd?
It's actually on the 59 Feeder Road at Greenbrier,
Okay.
which is the one street over from Shepherd. So it's in Midtown Houston.
Midtown Houston on the 59 Feeder Road. And Shiva, how long have you done immigration law?
Oh, I've been doing immigration law since, I want to say exclusively immigration law, since middle of 2007.
Oh, wow.
And my specialty is deportation defense and gaining legal status for people who are interested in gaining legal status.
That is incredible.
I don't do work visas.
Okay, no work visas, but deportation and legal status.
Right.
Well, that's an important issue, especially where we are in Houston and, well, I mean, in our country and all that's going on with, there's so much. It seems like it's always at the top of the news, the asylum seekers and all of that. And I know we've been talking about that, but we wanted, before our last break, we talked a little bit about U visas, and I wanted to come back to that. And you felt like that was a good topic to talk about, because based on your experience and the interest of people, when you're the victim of a crime,
Right.
you can apply for something called a U visa. So, for example, I am an illegal citizen, or I've come to this country and I married a man that's a United States citizen, right?
Right.
And then I've applied for my citizenship, or I haven't applied.
And I'm just going to interject real quick here because I do a ton of like violent criminal defense, and a lot of them are false accusations because the person that wants to be a citizen is no longer in a relationship with this American citizen, so they falsely accuse them of harm or assault so they can get this U visa. But I never understood what it would take to get that, but it seems to be the catchphrase visa.
Okay. So
I agree.
So, U visas are not exclusively for being a victim of spousal battery. Okay. So if you're a victim of spousal battery and that person happens to have legal status, he's a citizen or a resident, or she is, your spouse is a citizen or a resident, and you're a victim of that spouse's battery, there is a different route, which is called VAWA, Violence Against Women Act.
Okay.
But U visa is if you happen to be a victim of certain crimes, such as, sexual assault, kidnapping,
It can be a guy or a girl.
It can be a guy. And interestingly, you can be an indirect victim. So in other words,
Oh.
I have clients whose children were victims of sexual assault,
Mhm.
and it was proven, and the guy went away to jail for 15 years for having sexually molested their daughter.
Uh-huh.
The mother who is undocumented, can also benefit from that as an indirect victim.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
emotional distress, intentional infliction of emotional
But
distress.
it has to be
And need-
proven and all that.
Well, but
right?
is that what it's like?
So the U visa requires that you be a victim of a listed crime. So the crimes are listed. So, for example, if you are a victim of car theft,
Mhm.
okay, you're not going to get a U visa.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. But you're a victim of a listed crime and you cooperate with law enforcement
Mhm.
in the arrest, conviction, prosecution, whatever.
Okay.
And it has to be, you have to do it within 2 years, report it and do it within
Okay.
2 years. Of the,
Okay.
So the reason is it's to get people who have no legal status, who were afraid to report a crime because they had no legal status. It's
Uh-huh.
to encourage them to come and report a crime.
Okay.
Right.
Now, so where people fall down on the job is they'll come to me 6 years later and say, oh, I was raped 6 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Well, too late because
Yeah.
they're never going to catch him.
Right.
Mhm.
Or they say, well, yeah, I reported it, and the cop came and asked me a bunch of questions, but then he wanted me to come back in and look at a photo array or a lineup, and I was afraid I didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you haven't cooperated.
Right.
Okay, so I always say, okay, if they come to me, I say, go cooperate, give the cop your number, give the DA your number. When they subpoena you, go there, assist. And so really, at the end of the day, and the second thing it requires is law enforcement certification.
Okay.
So the chief of police or the district attorney has to certify a form that says, yes, she was a victim of such and such a crime,
Okay.
and yes, she cooperated.
Okay.
Once you get that certification, we can file it with immigration.
Okay, and that goes right to a trial that occurred last week where this girl falsely accused the guy of assault, and the jury came back with a not guilty. But she did everything you said. She immediately, in fact, the reason that I think it came back not guilty is because the day after the alleged assault is when she called 911 to go to the hospital, and the records were kind of wishy-washy. It didn't look like she'd been choked. She said she had, whatever. But it was enough that the prosecution wanted to nail this guy, right? And so ultimately, he was found not guilty because there wasn't enough evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. But she did everything she needed to do to get the UVIS. And it looked like she was only going through these. She knew the game. She knew that she had to report it to the police. She had to go through the little hospital thing, even if they didn't plan out. She had to get the police to certify it. And
Did they certify it?
They did certify it. So and I think the prosecutors actually believe the guy that was found not guilty actually still did it. Is that going to be enough? This little game that she played that was really fraudulent because it didn't really happen. Would that be enough for her to say it did happen and I need my U visa?
I mean, I cannot make a judgment call that just because the guy was found not guilty that it didn't happen. I mean, neither can immigration.
I think that,
So-
let's just say that was the case, though, that wouldn't that encourage women that came over, or men, if it was the other way around, wouldn't that encourage them to make false accusations against somebody so they could get the U visa?
I guess I would have to agree with you, but I know that the district attorney in Houston won't certify it till the trial is over.
Oh, is that right?
So, because they want to make sure
That's
you'll
not
show
the
up.
same.
And
I know that's not the same. At least it wasn't in Fort Bend
Right.
where I had done one because they got it.
yeah, so, Harris County will say, well, when it's all over, we'll certify it.
Okay, good.
Okay,
Good
so
to know.
you have that. You've got a listed crime. You've got cooperation with law enforcement, and then now you have a certification that you from law enforcement. So what do you do then? So you've done that. What do you
So
do?
then you have to file with that piece of paper. You have to file with immigration, the U visa documents. But then you also have to prove discretionary grounds. So, so the Harris County, if you have any convictions of your own, regardless of how bad a victim you've been, Harris County is refusing to certify it. They're
Okay.
saying you're a bad person. So you still have to prove I deserve to be here. These are the sympathy factors. I have good moral character.
So you have to have a clean record to get that.
It depends on the jurisdiction because HPD and Harris County Sheriff will certify anything.
Oh, is
if,
that right?
If you are indeed a victim.
Okay, it doesn't matter if you're kind of a bad person too, because
They
I
don't
know-
really, I mean, obviously, if you have a warrant hanging out there, they'll take you in. But, but at the end of the day, but immigration looks at why do you deserve to stay?
Okay. For an example, and I'll just use a first name. We had a common client named Elizabeth who was abused by the father of the child, and she's not legal, but she's got a terrible record because she ended up, stealing from Walmart while she applied for the job there, and doing other really dumb things, but not a total criminal, but dumb things. Okay, so she could be certified by Harris County, even though her record's not clean.
Well, I mean, what we had done for Elizabeth is because she married a citizen, so I had done a VAWA for her,
Okay.
which is a better. So if you have a spouse,
Oh, she did get married. That's right.
So
Okay.
if you have a spouse who's a citizen or a resident,
That's
VAWA is
right.
the better
she
way to
married
go.
one guy
because
who
you don't
ended
need
up in prison.
certification.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Okay. I'd forgotten all about that.
Okay, great. Well, so then they're applying, they get these certifications. You said that the DA in Harris County, if you've got any kind of criminal record, won't provide the certification. You submit your documents with your application for the U visa. And how long does that process take?
So the process to get certification is pretty quick,
Mm-hmm.
and there are procedures. HPD has their procedures. You have to go get a pre-signed form, and then long story.
Right.
So once you get law enforcement certification, we have 6 months from the date of that signature to file with immigration.
Okay.
And that's where all the discretion comes in. She's a single mother. She's raising a kid. She's a good person, works, pays taxes.
And
has
you
no
work
family
with your
and-
client to come up with these arguments.
Absolutely.
And-
we
and-
write we help them write detailed affidavits as why they deserve to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we file that with immigration. And then once it's approved, there's only 10,000 of these given nationwide every year. 10,000.
U visas?
Wow.
10,000 green cards. So you can get approved for a U visa and get a work permit
Uh-huh.
and be allowed to stay here.
Uh-huh.
But it could take many years before your number comes for you to actually get a green card.
Oh.
Yeah. But if you have no other way to fix your papers and you really have been a victim of a crime, I have a lady whose daughter was sexually molested and the guy pulled 15 years for aggravated sexual assault of a child under 14. And but they had interviewed the child, 5 years old. She knew details of the sexual assault that no 5-year-old would know.
Oh my gosh, he only got 15 years.
He got 15 years.
That's not much. They usually get far more than
I
that.
think that's a
I mean, we're hoping to get her only.
I mean, child molesters get more time than murderers. That I've seen that over and over again, which is
yeah.
but
Okay, well, now we want to talk about the provisional unlawful presence waiver. I'm sorry, Shiva, I have no idea what that is. What is that?
So that's an outstanding question. So far, we have talked about people coming to the attention of immigration because they themselves have committed some infraction. So they had a law enforcement encounter, which now immigration has you, and they're going to put you into deportation proceedings. Now, what if you are just an ordinary, regular, good person who's going about their business? You have no, criminal record at all. And then you say, how can I fix my papers? So the only route in that, to get that unlawful presence waiver. So waiver is the legal word for a pardon, perdón, as they call it in Spanish, okay? Because when you come illegally, you must return to your country for 10 years in order to fix your status. But that can be waived or pardoned if you can show extreme hardship to a citizen or resident spouse or a citizen or resident parent. Now, in the old days, nobody was interested because they had to wait for their pardon in their home country, which would take a long time. But they came out with the provisional unlawful presence waiver, which means you're given the pardon is approved here, you still must return to your country to finish the process. But instead of being 2 years, it's less than 2 weeks.
oh really?
And it's
Oh my
called
gosh.
provisional because something might come up. I've had a few issues that came up, but instead of 2 weeks, it took them 3 months to come back.
I just have to ask. That means basically you get to go visit your home country for a few
Visit
weeks,
grandma.
a little
Visit
vacation to say, "Hey, I'm
Or
moving,"
mom, in some
and
cases,
collect your
mom.
stuff, and then come back. So really, it's a necessary thing.
And a lot of times spouses accompany them because it's like a honeymoon. We never could travel before. But you do need a citizen or resident spouse. Children won't help.
This also applies to people who had a visa, entered the country legally, and they overstayed. Is that correct?
No, actually, if your initial entry was legal and you overstayed and you marry a citizen, we'll fix your status right here. You don't got to go nowhere. You don't even need a waiver.
Okay.
Oh, as long as because you came over on a visa of some kind.
They entered
Or
legally.
you have now a child over 21.
Okay, but that means
Citizen
if you
child.
came over just to visit with a vacation or just to be a student for a year or something, that's the way to do it.
If you've
Quickest way to
overstayed,
citizenship.
but your initial entry was legal
Uh-huh.
with a visa,
I know so many people that are at the universities that overstayed.
but they need a citizen spouse.
Right. And that's
Or
what
a
they do. They
citizen
look
child
for
over 21.
within their classes a citizen spouse.
Does that apply to people with temporary protected status if they entered legally and they, say their papers have to be renewed every, 16, 18 months? I'm not sure.
So the people who got temporary protected status have illegal entries. So they
do
came
they?
illegally, and then because of a designation by the president that, there is for public policy reasons, because of earthquake or a civil war,
Right.
like Haiti was an earthquake, we're not going to send you back. It's like DACA. It's temporary protected status. And at any point, it can be yanked and you could lose that status. But most Central Americans who came illegally and managed to get temporary protected. So when they had the Ebola virus in Africa, the people who came even as visitors from Africa, because you can't come illegally from Africa. You can, I suppose, if you come through Mexico. But they came And then the public policy said, we're not going to force them to go back because there's this epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
So they were given temporary protected status. But once the Ebola scare ended, that ended.
They had to leave. But then those papers can be renewed. Like if you're here for temporary protected status, it can be renewed every
It's renewed every year,
12 months.
every 12 months, if the TPS designation is renewed.
I
So
see.
each
so that's
year-
what the discussion with Trump is about the TPS. Is he's saying, I'll give you 3 years to get this right, but after that, I'm not going to extend
Because
this TPS.
some of them are ending in like March of 2020.
But if they
Mhm.
do that, and while they're here, they get married to a citizen, that trumps their ability to.
That was-
Provisional unlawful
that
presence
was my
waiver.
question.
Okay.
So they're treated, okay, but I'm not clear on this. If they do that and they're here and they get married to a citizen, do we fix it right here like we do the people that entered legally, or then it becomes
Yeah, like the student visa
So
people that stayed over.
interestingly enough, TPS gave you the privilege of asking permission to travel to your home country for urgent humanitarian reasons or employment related. So in other words, a lot of people traveled with permission because grandma was dying or mom was sick or whatever, or grandma died. And so when they came back with permission,
Okay,
that made their illegal entry legal.
okay,
And then if they married a citizen, they can fix it here.
okay.
But if they came illegally, never traveled, and they married a citizen, then they go the provisional unlawful presence route.
Okay.
So we do that.
Okay, so that kind of goes to, I know this is probably might be off the beaten track, but these groves and droves of people that are coming over the border and asylum seekers or whatever they're saying when they're really just coming for economic purposes for the most part, but they're saying it's for asylum. What's happening when if the ones that are crossing over that aren't going through the checkpoints and the ones that are, what is the difference and what is your take on that?
It's under litigation. So legally, whether you came through a port of entry and asked for asylum or toddled across the border and said, I'm here, legally, they can both ask for asylum okay, within 12 months.
Okay.
But what Trump has said is that you're ineligible to seek asylum unless you came through a port of entry and asked
Right.
for it. It's under litigation.
Okay.
So,
But it seems to me that you should get the benefit of a better benefit if you came through a port of entry because you can be maybe not tracked, but at least you've done it more legally.
so again, the answer to that is because it's impossible, nearly impossible, to win asylum cases, which is the reason that this whole thing is a crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Because really, the number of people that are actually going to end up winning is very, very low,
Right.
very low.
Right.
For reasons
3
of
to
which,
5%. I've
Right.
heard 3
So,
to 5%.
right. And I don't even take these cases
But
because
they're
it's taking
here,
them.
and they're going to be the ones that scurry into the,
Yeah, and at some point
Lands.
when they get caught, so to seek asylum, you have to show that you were persecuted, which is a very high bar, not like I received phone threats.
oh, really? Okay.
Okay, so, very high bar. It's like, I was hurt, I was arrested, I was, incarcerated, beaten, whatever, sexually assaulted, whatever.
They all say that the drug cartel is going to kill them. I mean, that's their
Yeah,
asylum.
Right.
up there.
And so then the second thing is that's what Sessions is trying to end, is that the harm must be by the government.
Yeah.
So if
Okay.
it's a private
Okay.
entity
so they
saying
can't just say, I want.
cartels, gangs, I'm being extorted.
That husband,
Right.
boyfriend.
Right.
And these people that are coming over that we really do need their work, like work visas, you don't do work visas. How does that work?
Well,
If they-
they're already here, though. I mean,
no,
they're
the people that are
can.
coming over want to work.
Yeah, so that's the big problem, is that if you come and apply for asylum within 12 months of your entry,
Uh-huh.
you're entitled to a work permit.
Okay.
Okay, if you apply. So a lot of people figure, well, I can't speak for their motives, but that's the sticking point, is that you come in, you're given a work permit, it's taking years and years for this to move through the courts, and so
Now you're
and
established.
3 to
and-
5% grant
are
rate,
successful anyway, right?
right? So that's the whole crisis, is that
but once
this
they're
should
here,
be
they're
stopped.
yeah, they should be. But once they're here, they're here. because they were
Yeah, but once if they lose their case,
then they'd be deported. But
must-
then they're like the DACA kids that I'm already here, I'm established, I've got I should be here.
I mean, DACA is different because somebody brought you over as your
Right, I
child,
totally agree. The
beyond-
DACA kids that I
without
know,
asking your permission.
the DACA kids
But
that
this
I
is
know are
somebody
just
who has
really sweet.
voluntarily made the decision to come. Again, you know, remember, this is public policy. I mean, our next president could say, this is fine. You know?
I get it.
True.
Right, right.
So true.
yeah.
Okay, well, listen, we so appreciate you coming, Miss
you.
Shiva Gill, an immigration attorney in Houston. She's on the 59 Feeder Road over by, did you say Greensboro?
No, Greenbrier.
Right, it's
Greenbrier.
GILL, right?
Yeah, we're 2200 Southwest Freeway.
All right. And so if, any of you are
Third floor.
interested, third floor. And,
And
the
she is
address
amazing.
what?
I'm just going to give you a plug here.
2220?
2200 Southwest
2200
Freeway.
Southwest
2200.
The most honest, moral, great immigrant. I'm just
That
she's
is
wonderful.
great.
Well, you can read our Google reviews. We have 5 stars.
Very
and
good.
We work
Well, I
very
just know
hard.
that there's a lot of immigration attorneys out there that will just take your money and knowing that they cannot win, and you would
Oh,
never
right.
ever
We
do
won't
that.
Right.
We just
Morally,
Thank
superior.
you for being on the show today. And we want to remind our listeners to,
serve God by serving others.
y'all have a great week.